This has got to be one of the most disappointing world title shots in recent history. I'll go into why in a little bit, but I think that this is a worse world title shot than Pianetta, than all the other ones that we've been exposed to in the last few years. And just to give a bit of background, my understanding is that the WBO were due to organise a mandatory challenge for Wladamir Klitschko's heavyweight championship. Now their man was Denis Boistov. Boistov was 33-0. 26 of his 33 wins came by way of knockout. He had the nickname of White Mike Tyson. He was quite a fearsome reputation and that sort of thing. It's fair to say Boistov's record was very, very, very padded. Boistov has recently withdrawn from a number of big fights. He withdrew from the Tyson Fury fight, he withdrew from the Derek Chisora fight, and it seems plain to me that Boistov was just hoping to get his money in a Klitschko showdown and didn't want to risk being exposed by, a fighter like Chisora or a fighter like Fury. He just wanted to take the easy route with his padded record and didn't want to, to go in against someone competitive. Now, my instinct is that because of that, he decided to go in against Alex Leapai. Alex Leapai, 37 fights, 30 wins, 4 losses, 3 draws. And if you look at Leapai, you wouldn't necessarily think he was a top-class fighter. He's 34 years old, 6 foot, carrying a bit of a tire on him. In terms of his form, he had a few losses at the start of his career, some decent wins against journeyman-style opposition. Perhaps most importantly, he'd lost to Kevin Johnson. Now, Kevin Johnson, as we know, he's a decent yardstick. He's a decent fighter, but he was demolished by Klitschko, Vitaly Klitschko that was, and also easily handled by Tyson Fury, who arguably won every round of their fight. So Kevin Johnson, he's an okay fighter. He's not genuine top tier. And the fact that Leapai got stopped by Johnson, would suggest Leapai wasn't that sort of world level. You'd think Boistov would be able to walk through him. So they had a 10-round fight. My understanding is that this was a sort of keep busy fight for Boistov, keep active, and then you're going to get your Klitschko shot in 2014. And that would be his opportunity. But Boistov was unbelievably disappointing. And I've got to be honest, in my opinion, Boistov was more disappointing than Leapai was impressive. 10-round fight, it went the distance. Leapai had him down twice. Leapai won by unanimous points decision. I don't think there's any dispute in the decision. It wasn't stylistically a very attractive fight to watch, but I think Leapai won the fight. Both guys they didn't seem to have the greatest levels of fitness or stamina. They were both very tired. As a result, the fight was fought, a lot of hugging, a lot of clinching, very close quarters. Neither men looked overly dynamic. Neither of them had brilliance with the hand speed. Neither of them looked like they carried amazing punching power. And Boistov got well and truly exposed. I don't think Leapai is much cocked, to be honest, but Boistov showed just how padded his record is by losing, by clearly losing the fight to Leapai. I think Leapai clearly won the fight, and fair play to him. So the reason I'm ranting on about this is off the back of that, Leapai has now been named as the mandatory challenger for Wladamir Klitschko's WBO world title. The parties have been given 30 days to get terms and conditions agreed and to get the fight going. And Klitschko have released a statement today saying they accept the challenger. They're looking forward to the fight. They're obviously keen to go for it. Leapai, I haven't heard from him. I haven't seen him talking in the press, but one would assume that he'll want to go for the massive payday and, obviously the sort of puncher's chance of winning the world title shot. So it looks like this fight is very much on, and I think the only way that this fight doesn't happen is if Leapai pulls out because he's scared of Klitschko, really. The money's going to be there, the opportunity is going to be there, and Leapai is most likely going to jump at it. So it looks like this fight is is well and truly on. I've, as a result, had quite a bit of a look into Leapai, watched a few of his old fights, that sort of thing. He was someone I'd heard of. I knew of his existence. I'm not going to pretend I was like a massively knowledgeable about him, or that I'd watched multiple fights involving him, but he was someone I'd heard of. Quite amusingly, Klitschko's statement said that they'd actually never heard of him before the fight with Boistov. So that shows just how little known this guy is. And going through his record, there's 3 fights to talk about, really. The first one is the Kevin Johnson fight. And the way Leapai fights, as I say, he's not got much of a jab, not got much hand speed. He's kind of like, the way to describe him is like if you remember how Derek Chisora was when he was massively overweight, he's kind of like that, but just much worse. He's all sort of mid-range hooking, doesn't look like he's carrying a lot of punching power, minimal hand speed, very much just getting on your chest, fighting in range. The thing I've noticed from Leapai is he very much fights in spurts. It seems that he can turn on the gas for like 30 seconds, throw these weak-looking hooks, and then he sort of runs out of stamina. He doesn't seem to be a very fit fighter. Now, Kevin Johnson, he's got a bit about him. You know, he's not world class, but he's got a bit about him. And what happened in their fight is Kevin Johnson actually stopped him. Now, Leapai was going through his little burst, throwing his little hooks, trying to press forward, got himself fatigued. Johnson was just able to sort of turn up the gas, throw a few punches, do his clean work, do his technically decent punching, and basically ref had to step in and call it off. That's not really world title level form, is it? I mean, as I say, Johnson lost every round to Fury, lost every round to Klitschko, got beaten by Tor Hamer in Prize Fighter. He was recently scheduled to fight Wladamir, a fight that Solis was a heavy market favourite. Getting knocked out by Kevin Johnson, it's not disgraceful. It doesn't mean you're a dreadful fighter. It probably doesn't mean you're at world title level. So that's fight number 1. The fight number 2 that I watched was the one that Leapai actually won, but it's probably even more disturbing in terms of his credentials, which was his 4th round TKO win over Travis Walker. And I've got to be honest, Leapai looked absolutely woeful in this fight. The commentators throughout said that Walker looked like he was going to get the stoppage. Leapai's work rate was dreadful, and Leapai did the whole thing, just as I referred to earlier, of fighting in spurts, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and he got himself so tired. There were times he was just standing on the ropes, like being hammered by Walker, and Walker wasn't able to, hurt him in terms of his massive punching power, but it looked like he was absolutely out on his feet. And finally, Walker, they were both unfit, and Walker got exhausted, and Leapai, he got a very charitable and early stoppage from the referee, in my opinion, but it was just how easily Travis Walker was able to land on him, how regularly he was taking shots from Walker. Walker's not a top-level fighter. I think he's lost a dozen fights. Every time he stepped up in grade, he's lost. And the problems he was causing Leapai, you think if Walker can hit him like that, Wladamir Klitschko is going to take his head clean off his shoulders, So, for me, that's a fight that's on YouTube. Have a look at it. Travis Walker versus Leapai. As I say, Leapai wins. He does well to win, but that fight does suggest we're not looking at a world title level fighter here. Obviously, the Boistov fight is another one. Boistov is the reason Leapai's in this. Boistov is the reason Leapai's going to be known. Boistov is the reason he's got himself his ranking. As I say, Boistov's record was very padded. I've had a look through it again. The more well-known names, Jason Gaverne, who came second in recent Prize Fighter, Andre Parla, who Chisora stopped recently, Dominic Gwynn, Vinny Madelone, former Tyson Fury knockout victim. It's this level of fighter Boistov's been in against and won. And Leapai probably is one above a Jason Gaverne or a Vinny Madelone. He probably is sort of one level above those guys, but he's certainly a level below Tyson Fury, Derek Chisora, Deontay Wilder, Bryant Jennings, Chris Arreola, Manuel Charr, Wladamir Solis. The list goes on, really, doesn't it? He's not, in my opinion, a genuine top 20 heavyweight. He's probably not, even a top 30, 40 heavyweight, dare I say. I mean, the name, you'd have to say, like, if you compare him to some of our position, some of the heavyweights out there, you'd think the likes of Malik Scott would easily be able to account for him. He really isn't a great sort of fighter, and I think looking at him, rather than just saying he's not a great fighter, because that's not a bit unfair of me, the way to describe it is the guy, he's got no snap to his punches, he's got no sort of, he doesn't jab his way in, he's got no good combination punching, he's not fast, he's not good on his feet, his stamina seems woeful. It's this whole fighting and burst thing and then just being out on his feet for a minute while he gets his breath back. He had Boystoff down twice but couldn't stop him. He's been beaten by Kevin Johnson. It's this whole thing, like, we've seen, a fighter like Povetkin trying to get in close to Wladamir Klitschko and trying to fight that kind of fight. And, we've seen what happened to Povetkin and how he got systematically destroyed in that fight. And I know that was controversial, but whether you like it or not, you've got to admit Wladamir Klitschko won that fight, quite easily. And, Povetkin is certainly a class above Leapai. I mean, if Povetkin had so much trouble getting in, Leapai is going to have a lot more. The only thing in his favour is there's been such controversy over Klitschko's holding tactics. Perhaps the ref will be more aware of it and, quicker to step in. So that might assist him. But, Leapai doesn't have the punching power to affect Klitschko. He doesn't have the hand speed. He doesn't have the footwork. And to be honest, he's just not fit enough. I mean, even against Boystoff, he was so lacking in stamina. You could see his pace dropping throughout the fight. He just won't be able to survive against Klitschko, I don't think. I think if he does that thing of, standing on the ropes and not throwing much back and just being a bit of a target, Klitschko will really, really take him out. And yeah, it's amazing that this is happening as a world title fight. To me, the amount of decent heavyweights out there now is hotting up the heavyweight division. There's a lot of fighters out there who are quite decent. There's a lot of undefeated prospects, Fury, Jennings, Wilder, more than that. And there's other sort of decent names out there in terms of credible opposition, even the likes of Chisora, Areola, Stavern, these are guys who are just such a level above Leapai, and to see him in this fight is disappointing to all those guys, and it's just not going to make for an entertaining fight. It's going to be a quick night work. I mean, I know, it's a mandatory, it's not Wladimir Klitschko's fault, but Wladimir Klitschko has fought some genuinely below world title level opposition. I think Francesco Pianetta was the last one, and he clearly had, he wasn't going to be competitive in that fight. Having said that, at least Pianetta came to the ring unbeaten. He had a little bit of a backstory. And when a fighter's unbeaten, I guess there's always it's always hard to sort of say, they're not a great fighter, because if you're unbeaten, and you've beaten what's been put in front of you. But with this guy, the fact he's lost to Kevin Johnson and the fact he looked like he's going to get stopped against Travis Walker, I think that is genuinely enough to say that he's not a top level heavyweight. And I'd fully expect Wladimir Klitschko in this fight to win by a very early stoppage. It really won't take Wladimir Klitschko to get out of first gear to win this fight, and it's just very disappointing given the myriad of exciting fights that are out there and available in this division now. Klitschko's 37 years old. He's not getting any younger. He's probably not got too many fights left, and it'd be good to see him against someone who's got a chance of beating him rather than Leapai. I mean, I'll go as far to say I'd be absolutely amazed if Leapai was able to take a round off Klitschko. I don't even really think he's got a puncher's chance. I know Wladimir Klitschko's chin has been questioned in the past, but this guy's just too slow. He really just doesn't have the dynamic ability. He doesn't have the snap in his punch, I don't think, to even have a puncher's chance in this fight. And as I say, I think if he got very, very lucky against Boystoff. He came up against a highly rated guy in Boystoff who was going to get a mandatory challenge himself, and he exposed him because of how padded Boystoff's record is. And, that was right time, right place for Leapai. If he'd had a fight against the likes of Chisora or Fury or, any of the real top 15, 20 heavyweights, he'd have been destroyed. I'm confident of that. And, I'd be surprised if this went any more than 4 or 5 rounds. I'd be amazed if Leapai won a single round. I think that Wladamir Klitschko will, fight like he did against Povetkin, try and keep the fight at range, close it down when it gets in close. I think Leapai will try and have little flurries, but run out of breath for a little while, and I think Klitschko will just clinically destroy him. And I think that would be the end of the matter. I think this is one of the least competitive heavyweight title fights we've seen for a long while. I know there's been quite a few, but this guy, I think, is a new low in terms of Klitschko opposition. So that's my thoughts. I know I've been quite critical there of Leapai. I don't blame him. I'd certainly do it if I was in his position, but it's really the WBO's fault why they've elected to make this move. Obviously Boistov was their man, and this guy's beaten him, and they've, off the back of that, elected him as a number one. But it's just so. This is why the public are disillusioned with boxing. This is why, someone like Wladimir Klitschko is, not an overly popular figure despite his immense record. It's just fights like this are just not gonna garner enthusiasm and excitement, which is what the sport really needs. So that's my thoughts. As I say, very disappointed that this has been announced. I don't see it being competitive. And before anyone comments about Leapai exposing Boistov and how good that form is and how good Boistov is, all I'd ask you to have a look at is just check out the Leapai Travis Walker fight, and specifically check out the fourth round of that fight where Walker looks like he's going to stop Leapai. And just imagine that instead of Travis Walker, that was Wladimir Klitschko. Or if it wasn't Wladimir Klitschko, imagine if it was Bryant Jennings, Deontay Wilder, anyone, Chris Arreola. The list goes on and on and on. Just imagine it was one of those guys, and think to yourself, how quickly would they have stopped Leapai if it had been one of those guys in this fight? And then sort of realise that he's going in against the heavyweight champion of the world, and it's just not going to be competitive in my opinion. But I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts. Please do check out that Walker fight. I think it's a very interesting piece of form ahead of this, and leave your comments below. What are your thoughts on Leapai? What are your thoughts on Boistov? No point hating on Vlad for this. It's not his fault, but he does seem to, he's jumped on it straight away and made it clear he's happy to take the fight, and I guess that's just a bit typical at the minute. But I'm disappointed. Sorry if it's been a little bit of a rant, but please leave your thoughts below. Thanks for watching.